Okay, today I'm going to do a video comparing the two airsoft versions of the Taran Tactical Pit Viper pistol as featured in the recent John Wick 4 movie. This video is going to be part one in a series of comparison videos about these two pistols. Today's video is not going to be talking about the shooting performance and is not going to feature any shooting. I'm purely going to be talking about the physical differences between the two pistols and comparing which pistol's appearance is the most accurate when compared to the real steel Pit Viper. So the two pistols we're going to be talking about are, first of all, the Army Armament Pit Viper. This is the Army Armament model R614. This is also referred to as the JAG Precision or JAG Precision Pit Viper. JAG or JAG is, however, they are not the manufacturer, they are just a licensor. The OEM, the real manufacturer, is Army Armament. The second pistol we are going to be talking about is the Armourer Works, or AW, Pit Viper. This is also referred to as the EMG Pit Viper, however, again, EMG is just a licensor. They are not a manufacturer, they don't manufacture anything themselves as far as I know. The real manufacturer is Armourer Works, which for the purpose of this video I'm going to be calling AW. And just a pet peeve of mine, I've seen a lot of reviews from US and UK and European YouTubers on these pistols, and it annoys me when they're referred to as, manufactured by EMG or manufactured by JAG or JAG, because again, those companies are licensors, just like Cybergun is a licensor. They don't actually have factories and manufacture anything themselves. Anyway, so moving on. Let's start our comparison of the pistol, and we will start with, I think, first of all, the magazine well. So, looking at the Army Armament pistol, we can see the Army Armament pistol has the correct carry type magwell, and I'm just going to grab my tablet here and show you the picture from the Taran Tactical website of the real steel Pit Viper, so you can see it has the same type of magwell. So we can see the magwell is actually kind of flat at the front, and when we look at the AW version is much more triangular here and much larger. This AW version is actually a competition magwell. AW version actually has this nice looking but incorrect Taran Tactical logo. Another feature of the Army Armament version, if we can see here, the magazine well is nicely blended with the grip, so there are no edges for the magazine to catch on when you're loading. The AW version, by comparison, the grip is not blended at all with the magwell. I mean, you can do this yourself with, maybe 30 minutes in a Dremel, but AW should have done that before they release the gun. So your mag does actually have the potential to catch or snag a little bit on insertion if you're doing rapid reloads. So I think in that regard, for the magwell, the winner is the Army Armament pistol. Alright, second we're going to be talking about the grip module. Now, the Army Armament has a nicely stippled, hand-stippled grip module with 2 grip screws per side. By comparison, the AW pistol has molded in stippling, not hand stippling, so it's not as aggressive, and it has 1 grip screw. Well, which is correct, you say, to the real steel? Aha, that's where things get interesting. Even on the real steel pistol, and I'll bring up the photos from the Taran Tactical website, there are different grip modules shown on the Pit Viper. So we have here nicely stippled grip module with 2 screws, but in this photo we have stippled grip module with only 1 screw. 2 screws again, 2 screws again, 1 screw again, one screw again, one screw again, and if you look closely here, I'll try and bring this a bit close to the camera, you can see this grip module actually has a Taran Tactical logo in the model, and sorry about the reflection from my ceiling lights there. So I think in terms of grip module, there's possibly no real winner. You can say in terms of the number of screws, both are technically correct. I do feel the Army though is better with its hand stippling. It's quite aggressive hand stippling. If you do feel it's too rough, you can just go over it with a sheet of fine grain sandpaper, just take some of the sharp edges off, but I like it. Right, next we're going to talk about the grip safety, and in terms of the grip safety, the Army Armament is the clear winner. Now when Taran Tactical released first of all the Sand Viper and then the Pit Viper, one of the major talking points, and it was mentioned on videos, was that Taran Butler himself didn't like grip safeties with what we call this memory groove or bump here. Now the purpose of this memory groove or bump is that if you shoot with a modern high thumb grip, the ball of your thumb here may not depress the grip safety enough, so the purpose of the memory groove or bump is so it sticks out a bit more, so your hand can more easily depress and deactivate the grip safety if you're shooting with a modern high thumbs grip, that is with your thumb riding on top of the safety. So Army Armament got this completely correct. They actually have the grip safety, and we'll bring up the photos here. They actually have the grip safety accurate to the real steel Pit Viper, whereas AW got it completely wrong. The Pit Viper and Sand Viper do not have this memory groove grip safety. Another area where AW got it wrong is, you can see here, or actually we'll show the Army one first, where the frame meets the grip safety, it blends nicely together. Comes down in a nice curve like that. On the AW version, the grip safety here is actually kind of sitting below the frame, so there's like a step. You can see it there. There's this kind of bump down, which is completely wrong. And we'll show the Army version there, how it's nicely, come on camera focus, nicely blended in. And again, we'll see if we can see this on the we'll get a photo there from the again Taran Tactical website there. Alright, next difference we're going to talk about is the magazine release. So the Pit Viper comes with an extended magazine release, and I think Army Armament did a good job on this. It extends out, but not too far. I think it's just the right distance. You can easily disengage it. AW, however, again they got a nice large extended button. However, and they did this on their Combat Master also, I feel they extended it out too far. So we see there AW, the distance the magazine release extends out. Army, the distance it extends out, and it's quite a significant difference. So from the photos I've seen, again the Army appears to be the more accurate to the real steel of the two. Alright, so next point to talk about I think will be the trigger, and again even on the real steel Pit Vipers there have been different triggers seen. So the Army has a nice black trigger, not as curved as many 2011 triggers, but not completely flat either. But again, this does seem to be pretty accurate to the real steel, and I'm just going to try and bring up some photos here. So there's one photo there with the black trigger. However, and then we see the Army has, sorry, the AW has a silver trigger. And again, this is also kind of accurate as well, because on the official photos on the Taran Tactical website, you can see that some of the Pit Vipers also have a silver trigger. Okay, so next thing to talk about will be, I think, the slide release. So, Army Armament version has correct style slide release when you look at the photos of the real Pit Viper. The AW version, however, has an older STI type slide release, again, which is inaccurate to the real Pit Viper. And we'll bring up a photo. So again, photo of the real steel Pit Viper for comparison. Another area where I feel that the Army Pit Viper is superior, and let me just remove the slide stops. So this is the slide stop from the Army Pit Viper. So it's a one-piece design and solid on the inner edge. But when we compare the AW or EMG, so again we can see it's a one-piece design. However, if the camera focuses enough, you can see it is hollow inside. So as far as in terms of quality, durability, I think this is probably points are going to go to the Army version, not the AW version. We'll leave those out for the moment, as we're going to remove the slide in a little bit. Right. Now, one of the another area where the Army gets it correct is in terms of the groove or slot for the rail. For accessory mounting. You can see the slot is actually quite wide. When you compare it to the AW version, it's a very narrow slot. And again, if we look at the photos of the real steel Pit Viper, you can see, oops, nearly dropped my tablet there. You can see large slot. So in terms of accuracy to the real steel, the Army version wins again, I think. Another area, and one of the main selling points, I think, of the Army version is that it is the only Army Armament 2011 style pistol which comes with steel fire control components. So the hammer disconnector, sear, valve knocker, etc. And I've got a magnet here. Magnet will attach to that. I'll take off the slide. And magnet will attach there as well. And there. And this actually gives you a quite nice crisp trigger pull. So again, props to Army Armament for doing that. The AW EMG version, by comparison, just has normal hot metal components. Now, One area where AW EMG did get things very correct is the length of the gun. The Real Steel Terran Tactical Pit Viper is advertised as having a 5-inch barrel length, unlike the Combat Master, the 2011 Combat Master from John Wick 3, which had a 5.4-inch length. So grab my ruler here, and let's see if we can do this on camera. We measure from the breech face. Not sure if this is going to show, but we measure from the breech face to the end of the barrel or end of the compensator there, and we have 5 inches. Whereas with the Army version, actually measurement starting just there, we measure from the breech face to the end of the compensator, and it is about 5.4 inches. So that is the main area, or really the only area, where Army Armament screwed up this pistol. They made it too long, which is a shame. If it had been 5 inches, it would have been perfect. So props for sorry, brain fade there, for AW/EMG for getting the length correct. All right, so we're going to talk about the let's see, we'll talk about the slides next. So let me just take off the slides of the two, put the frames aside. Okay, so the Army slide, it's advertised as being a CNC aluminium slide. It is actually very nicely finished, very nicely cut. The slide serrations are actually quite sharp at some points. If you rub your finger against it, you can actually feel it cutting into your hand. I have found when shooting this, that doesn't affect things too much. I've been shooting a lot of range drills with this. I've put about 2,000 rounds through the gun so far without any problem. And the slide serrations do actually make it very easy to manipulate the slide. I haven't cut my hand on it at all, so that's no problem. So I'm actually really impressed with this slide, and while we're here, we'll just go over the markings. So we have quite bright white laser engraved Terran Tactical Innovations markings on this side, and again quite white bright Pit Viper markings on the other side. If we compare that to the AW/EMG slide, again we have the same marking, Pit Viper markings and Terran Tactical logo there, but they are a less bright white, sorry. And we'll flip over to the other side. So Army on the bottom, quite bright markings, AW on the top, slightly duller markings. In terms of deep engraved markings, on the Army version we have a Terran Tactical logo on the rear sight. We have a Terran Tactical logo just in front of the ejection port. On the Army EMG version, we only have the Terran Tactical logo on just in front of the ejection port. There is no Terran Tactical logo on the rear sight. And while we're talking about markings, we'll go back to the frame. So the Army version, on the left side of the frame, there are no markings. On the right side of the frame, we have an engraved Terran Tactical logo on the magazine release. We have an engraved Terran Tactical logo here on the frame. And then we have, if this focuses, we have our engraved Terran Tactical markings and address here. On the AW pistol, and also serial number as well, which is actually a TTI serial number on the Army gun. On the AW gun, again, no markings on the left side of the pistol apart from the incorrect magwell markings. On the right side of the pistol, we have the same deep engraved TTI logo on the mag release, same deep engraved TTI logo on the frame. we have our serial number here. However, this serial number starts EMG rather than TTI, and then looking at the markings under the frame, we also have, I'm not sure if this will focus because I'm just using the front selfie cam to film this. This is also Terran Tactical Innovations and their address. Okay, I'm just going to put the slides back on the guns, and then we're going to talk about some of the other problems that I found, or other inaccuracies, I should say, I found. Give me a second. Right, lock the slide back. And my tablet's gone off. Okay, now another area where Army Armament got their version of the Pit Viper correct is this band, black band around the barrel behind the compensator. So on the real steel, this black band is one part of the one piece with the compensator, and it basically supports the front sight base. So this is actually correct to the real steel, and we'll bring up a photo again from Terran Tactical's website there. So that's how the real steel pistol should look. See if we can find another photo there. There's another close-up of the real steel there. Unfortunately, AWEMG got this completely incorrect. So they don't have the black band, which is part of the compensator, supporting the front sight base. And in fact, the front sight base, if you can see it, only connects to the compensator at the front here with no support. You can see the light gap of light there between the bottom of the front sight base and the outer barrel. So this, inaccurate to the real steel, really don't like the look of it. And also there is a potential that while you're airsofting, if you were to hit your pistol on a wall, hit the front side on a wall or something, as there's no support underneath, it could bend and damage it. Right, so inner barrels. The Army version has a black inner barrel which extends all the way out through the compensator. You can see it there. I'm glad they did it black because it means you can't actually see it as much as a silver or brass barrel. The front of the compensator is threaded, which personally I hate it when compensators or outer barrels are threaded because it's unrealistic and looks ugly, but I know there are people out there that like to mount tracers on their pistols. The AW version, the inner barrel extends, I think, partially into the compensator, but the compensator is not completely cut out. It has this section here which basically is attached to the is part of the compensator and covers the outer barrel. So again, that's also kind of an ugly solution. I'd rather, I'd personally prefer the inner barrel just comes to the end of the outer barrel, or AW, I wish AW had maybe done what Army had done and not have this kind of cover here and just used a black outer barrel and had it, coming all the way to the end. That would have also been acceptable. But anyway, it is what it is. But once you know what the real steel pistol looks like, not having this correct band here, it just, to me, it looks off now. you know, one of the things I've always liked about airsoft is that a lot of the manufacturers, especially the Japanese manufacturers, and to a certain extent the Taiwanese and some of the mainland Chinese airsoft manufacturers, you know, they try and be as accurate to the real steel as possible, get it looking as accurate, get it, you know, get as many markings as possible. Not every airsoft manufacturer does that, and I think unfortunately AW are one of the ones that sometimes don't try to make their guns as accurate looking to the real steel as possible. But anyway. Okay, one last thing to talk about, I think, is the magazines. Now there are various lengths of 2011 style magazines available in the real steel world and airsoft world. The Army version comes with this magazine that extends you know, downwards or out from the magazine well, whereas the AW is a bit shorter, a bit more flush. I'm trying to, I didn't research this beforehand. If I remember, 2011 mags are usually, I think it's 126 and was it 120 mm or 126 mm and 140 mm, maybe 170 mm. But looking at the real steel Pit Viper, we got a photo of the real steel, the real rear sight there, and we can see that it actually does have the marking on it, which the Army version has and the AW version doesn't have. But we're getting sidetracked there. So if we look at this photo of the Pit Viper, we can see the magazine doesn't extend out that much. But again, there's different 2011 magazines. Again, here's a good photo. We can see that's how the magazine, or that's how the magazine the gun is sold with sticks out. So we can see, I think AW have done a bit of a better job there, whereas compared with the Army version where it extends further out from the grip. All right, other things I want to talk about are the let's look at the markings on the chamber. So on the Army version, we've got 9mm deep engraved there. You can see the finish on my outer barrel and chamber is starting to wear off a bit. As I said, I have shot this gun quite a bit. I've shot it about 2,000 rounds so far. So that's the version, that's the marking on the Army. This is the version, this is the marking on the AW, slightly deeper engraved. This gun I've probably only shot a couple of 100 rounds through it so far. I haven't shot it as much, so the finish is much more intact on the outer barrel. And then we'll compare that to the deep engraved markings on the real steel. So both the Army and AW are not exactly correct in terms of the size and the depth of the 9mm markings. Last thing I think I want to talk about really is the hammers. So we're going to look at, first of all, this is the AW hammer. Remember that shape. This is the Army hammer. And then we'll see if we can get a close-up photo of the real steel hammer. So there's a I think both the I think both the Army and the AW, both are not entirely accurate to the real steel. There's slightly more material on them, but I think that's, in a way, that's a good thing, because you don't want the hammers breaking so easily. The last thing I want to talk about are the fangs on the Pit Viper. So with both the Army version and the AW version, the fangs here do not extend out when the slide is locked back. So that's the AW version. That's the Army version. You can see the fangs are flush, and then we can see, let's find a photo of the, that's the real steel version, how far the fangs should extend out when the slide is locked back. Alright, so that's all I want to talk about today. Sorry if that was kind of a very long and only semi-coherent rambling video. So which is my favorite out of the two? I would say overall I do prefer the Army Armament version. It has a much, okay, gun is unloaded. It has a much cleaner trigger brake. It also uses a much, I think, stronger leaf spring, so the reset, it's got a better and more positive reset. So this is now the AW version. The reset is a bit slower and weaker, and the feeling is a bit more mushy, I think, because you're using the pot metal fire control components as opposed to the MIM steel components here. And just to clarify, from my understanding, these are not, you know, cast or forged steel from tool steel. They are just MIM steel, so metal injection molded, but they're still going to hold up a lot better than pot metal fire control components. So yeah, I think Army version is my favorite. I feel the trigger is better, the grip feels better. I like that the magazine release doesn't extend out so far. I think the finish on the CNC, the finish and cutting on the CNC slide is a bit better than the AW version. Again, and I love that it has the correct compensator barrel band. Again, my only complaint is that the gun is too long, and once you found out that and you know that, you kind of do tend to notice it a lot. AW is not bad, but I feel if you're not too concerned about the small details like the incorrect slide stop, the too narrow rail cut, the missing band on the black band on the compensator, the incorrect grip safety, the incorrect mag well, then it's a good gun. It performs well. As I said, I've only shot about 200-300 rounds for it so far, but it works well. Right side safety has a little bit of play, but this is typical of AW guns. On the Army, the much less play on the right side safety. Out of the box, I haven't changed anything on these pistols. The only work I did was on the leaf spring on the Army gun for the grip safety, because as I mentioned, the grip safety is very slim, very narrow here, and for my hands, unless I really squeeze down tight, I have trouble depressing it. So out of the box, shooting with a high thumb grip, I was having trouble depressing the grip safety here. This is a me problem. Again, depending on your hand size and shape, it might not affect you. So all I did was I took out the 3-leaf spring and I slightly bent the left side leaf, which controls the grip safety tension. So to make it easier to depress, because it is quite a strong spring in this one. So now I've got it so where the grip safety still works, it's still active, but I don't have to press in so much or so hard to deactivate the grip safety. And that was a literal 5-minute modification, if that. And that's the only thing I've done on this gun. So which one should you get? That's up to you. If you want a correct length gun, go with the AW. If you want a gun which has most of the details correct, performs well, go with the Army one. If the length doesn't bother you. All right. Anyway, so sorry for that long rambling mess. So next video we'll do some shooting performance.